Hello, my friends, and welcome to my 100,000 subscriber Ask Me Anything special. Hope you're all doing well. So, it's been about a month since I hit the truly unreal milestone of 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. And I really just want to say thank you so much to everybody. Whether you're joining recently or whether you've been here the whole time, this has been a truly incredible journey. And I just can't thank you all enough for all of the support that you've shown me. Doing this has completely changed my life, and you've all been a part of that. So I really want to say thank you so much to all of you. One of the things that I wanted to do in order to celebrate, and I've been a little slow at doing the celebrations, it's been kind of a busy month, but we'll get a couple more special events going, was do a kind of an AMA. A lot of people have asked some general questions, and I thought that this was a good excuse to take a moment and answer them. So I asked everybody to submit a bunch of questions. I've gathered those all here, and I'm going to go through them and answer them. I got a little over 200 questions, and I've kind of mostly randomly selected a bunch to answer. So if you submitted a question and I don't get to it, I apologize for that. There were just too many to cover in one video, but I really appreciate everybody who sent in a question, and I'll answer as many as I can. And if I don't answer your question in this video, feel free to repeat it in the comments, and I'll hopefully be able to get to it. I've divided the questions roughly into 5 categories. So questions that are sort of general questions about like doing YouTube, what the experience of YouTube has been like for the past 3 years. Questions about, me personally, things like that. Gaming questions generally. So questions about what I think about gaming philosophy, my gaming history, and so on. Questions about Baldur's Gate 3 specifically, questions about Brotato specifically, and questions about other games specifically. And I'll timestamp them below, so if you're interested in one of those types of questions, you can jump to it. All right, let's get in and just start answering questions. First up, frequently asked questions. So these are ones that I just saw a lot of people were curious about these things. So rather than answer them individually repeatedly, I just kind of grouped them all together, and I'm going to answer the most common questions that I got. The number one most common... Oh, it looks like I've accidentally put an extra transition in the slideshow, but it's too late now. The most common question that I got from basically everyone was show cat. I've mentioned my cat sometimes being present for the recordings, and everybody wanted to see him. Here he is. His name is Desmond. He is almost 15 years old at this point, and you can see him being very cute and being very old and grumpy. Another question a ton of people have asked is, what is my job? Which, of course, is a very fair question. And the answer is, this is my job. I've been lucky enough to be able to support myself full-time on YouTube since the end of 2023. I think it was January 2024, where I sort of made the commitment to doing this full-time and having it be my main or sole source of income. Which has been incredible. I didn't want to make a big deal out of it when I transitioned to doing it full time, because I genuinely wasn't sure how long it would last, whether the audience would stick around, or whether this was sustainable long term. Obviously, this is a very risky career path. There's a lot of externalities and things like that, so there's still no guarantee that it's sustainable long term. But since the end of 2023, I've been able to just do this as my main source of income and main job, which has been truly incredible. And again, I can't thank you all enough. Because I know a lot of people will ask, my job before this was as a project manager in tech. I worked for a pretty large tech company whose products you have certainly used, but whose name you have almost certainly never heard, because they make a lot of infrastructure that underlies a lot of the tech world. And so that was my job for almost a decade before I left in the beginning of 2023, and then started doing YouTube again as a hobby mid-2023, and then it took off, and I was able to, instead of continuing to look for new work, just commit to doing this. So that's been amazing. Many people also ask some variant of the question, what is your favorite game or games of all time? Now, this is a very, very complicated question for me, to be honest, because there's so many different ways that I play different types of games. And so calling one type of gameplay my favorite, or one type of game my favorite, is very difficult. What I mean by that is that There are many games that I have played for money, whether those be games that I've played on the channel here or games that I've played competitively, which include StarCraft Brood War, League of Legends, Team Fortress 2. And those games, of course, I have sunk thousands or tens of thousands of hours into, and so certainly have to be in the conversation for my favorite games, though a lot of the time what I is there for was really like the competition and the improvement in games that I played competitively. So obviously the game itself matters a lot, but a lot of it also is the thrill of competing and doing well. Games that were really formative for how I think about games include all of those types of games, but also a lot of single player games like the Elder Scrolls Morrowind is one that comes to mind. Knights of the Old Republic and Neverwinter Nights and the sequels to both of those, so the old BioWare and Obsidian games. Some older games like Darklands, which I think is from 1992 and is a very old RPG, and really was one of the first games that sort of showed me like the potential for storytelling in games. Arcanum, another old RPG that I think is very much worth mentioning and probably still worth rediscovering and playing today. Other games, strategy games like Age of Empires, I played hundreds of hours as a kid. The Civilization games, Crusader Kings 2, which is I think still my most played game on Steam, even after I've spent thousands of hours playing and recording games for YouTube. So lots and lots of different options for how to answer that question, but hopefully that gives you some idea of the types of games that I've enjoyed. Lots of different strategy games. I think that my gaming tastes are extremely broad, and I will play strategy games, I'll play RPGs, I'll play puzzle games, I'll play arcade games, I'll play dating sims, and I'll enjoy all of that type of thing. Somewhat relatedly, a lot of people asked, what games am I playing offline? Like, what games am I playing and not posting footage of on YouTube? And I spend a lot of time playing games also for fun. So right now, I am doing another Crusader Kings 3 playthrough, really enjoying that. I've been playing a little Total War Warhammer again. I recently played through the Outer Worlds 2 and really enjoyed it. I need to actually finish it. I was actually considering playing that one for the channel, but there aren't really character builds in that game, so it didn't make a lot of sense to do sort of the deep dives that I think are best suited on this channel, but I still really enjoyed the game. I played through Avowed and kind of a similar story. I also really enjoyed that one. I've been playing a lot of games on Steam Deck and sort of little puzzle games as well. One game that I really enjoyed was Suzerain, which I played on Steam Deck, which is kind of a political simulator, where you take up the mantle of a president of a sort of second world country in an alternate history 1950s, and that was a really fun and really well written and interesting puzzle. So yeah, lots and lots of different games that I'm playing. And finally, the last question that I got asked by a lot of different people was, do you have, or why don't you have, a Discord? And obviously, a lot of YouTube channels have a Discord associated with that channel that's run by the creator or by community members. I don't, and the reason that I don't is that moderating a Discord is a lot of work. You have to keep up with things in real time. There are spam bots and people being unpleasant who you have to deal with, and I try not to ban people from posting on the channel as much as possible, but in a Discord, it is very different because it just takes one person being really unpleasant to completely ruin the tone of the community. And so then you have a lot of responsibility as a moderator in order to make sure that happens. I already do a fair amount of work, I think, on the channel in order to try to make it as welcoming a place for as many different people as possible. So, I get rid of people who are being really, really unacceptable. But when something happens in real time, it's correspondingly more difficult and just requires a higher burden of moderation. So the answer is running a Discord is hard work and I don't want to do it, basically. Next up, general questions. So these are questions about the experience of doing YouTube professionally for the last 3 years, which I think is one of the most interesting things to talk about in this AMA, because it's a very weird and unusual experience that not a lot of people have. And also questions about sort of my personal history, how I got to this point, and things like that. Bear in mind, I have skimmed these questions very, very briefly to put them in these categories while copying them into this slideshow. But it's very possible I might have put stuff in the wrong category, so bear with me if that happens. All right, let's jump into it. The Red Terror asks, congratulations. Thank you. Me and my partner love watching your videos together, and we have some questions we've been wanting to ask for a while. What's your educational background, and do you have any background in academia, or have you engaged with any scholarship in your own time? So my educational background is I took the history of science. I studied the history of science and technology in college. At the same time, I was working part-time at a tech company, and then that became a full-time job. So rather than using anything that I learned in university, I went into web design and development, and then user experience, and then project and product management. So my academic background has very little to do with my professional trajectory, but has remained a strong interest for me. And I've certainly spent a lot of time reading history. I love learning about history, especially the history of social and technological phenomena. I think that those are really fascinating, and you probably have heard me talk about that and go on tangents about that in my videos. Also, they ask, have you ever gotten into Magic the Gathering or another TCG? Yes, to my wallet's eternal pain, I got into Magic the Gathering in 1994, right after it came out, and have been playing pretty much constantly since then. I'm just a subscriber says, congrats, you deserve this. I want to ask about your sense of humor. I greatly enjoy it. I've heard you call it dad humor. I don't know if you're a dad, but what funny movies or shows shaped your humor? Also, I've put these questions in a completely random order, so I'm going to be blindsided by every one of these questions, by the way. I am not a dad. I have a partner, but we don't have kids. But I will say I think that probably a lot of my dad jokes come directly from my father, who is very much a dad joke kind of guy. What funny movies or shows shaped my humor? Monty Python, Harry Pratchett, Spaceballs, that type of movie. Those are all, I think, ones that I would say were really formative for developing my sense of humor. Dennis, Lord of the Rings nerd. My question to you is, how far do you want to take your career as a YouTuber? Do you see a future where your videos influence millions of people? Would you want that, or are you just going with the flow wherever the YouTube algorithm takes you? How far do I want to take it? So I think probably I would not be that interested in running like a massive content empire. One of the great things about being a YouTube creator instead of working in a corporate job is you don't have to take that many meetings. And I had to do a lot of meetings in my last job. And once you start having a lot of people working for you and you're running 10 channels and doing all of that, that just becomes a lot of work, and it turns much more into a corporatized job than a job where you're actually making and creating stuff. That being said, just like everybody else in the entire universe, money is a real incentive for me. So if the channel were to suddenly grow massively to the point where I felt like it was realistic to make enormous amounts of income by expanding, it would certainly be something I'd have to think seriously about. Whether do I see a future where my videos influence millions of people? I guess technically I see a present where my videos influence millions of people. I get about 1 million views every month on YouTube. So if you count having watched at least a portion of the video as being influenced, then technically that's the case. And am I just going with the flow wherever the YouTube algorithm takes me? I'm mostly going with the flow wherever my interests take me and wherever the audience takes me. I am probably not as good about following the algorithm as I should be in order to maximize my returns on the channel or anything like that. But that just isn't a strong goal for me. And I think that the content, the videos are much more authentic if I'm not trend chasing and trying to follow the algorithm. So I don't know how much that answers your question. It was kind of several different directions, but those are kind of my thoughts. I think I'm pretty happy with the footprint that this channel has right now. I'd like to continue steady, sustainable growth. Shackled Heart says, why don't you set up a self-cam? I think you'll acquire more traction. I think that the answer to that is basically I don't think I'd acquire more traction. I just don't think that the type of videos I do really benefit from a camera. And camera is just like a Discord, kind of a lot of work. You have to be camera ready. You have to, do lighting and makeup and stuff. And I just don't think that the juice is worth the squeeze. I don't think that it adds that much. I've done videos on camera before. If you dig back through the archives, you can find those, and there's no meaningful performance difference. So it's just more work and, not that much return. Call Me Cold, Please says, congrats on 100K. Thank you. What is your experience with burnout? So in terms of doing YouTube, I guess my experience with burnout is I haven't really. Obviously, that's always a risk at some point later on. And I think you're probably mostly asking about burnout with the channel. But I think I've been pretty good about pacing how I do videos and mixing in low effort and high effort stuff so that I'm not frantically doing things all the time. I guess it's a little ironic because I'm actually in a bit of a crunch right now because I'm going out of town. So I'm building a backlog as I'm recording this in order to, have a buffer. But as long as I keep a buffer so that I don't have to record 20 videos in one day, I don't think that I'm at much risk of burnout. And to be frank, this job is easier than previous jobs because it's something that I just really enjoyed doing, and so I just have more energy to do it. My experience with burnout in previous jobs, definitely present. I have worked in a lot of corporate environments, and those chew you up and spit you out. I mean, many of you probably have worked in corporate environments. I think demographically speaking, it's very likely a lot of you have worked in the tech world, and especially in the last decade or so, that has been a challenging environment where there are a lot of people who are in charge and don't know what they're doing, and that gets in your head. So that I've definitely experienced. Soy Bomb and Mike Dickens both ask a variant of, I remember you mentioning you had some martial weapons training. Could you please expand on that? Sure. So when I was a teenager, I took a lot of, I did a lot of combat sports, and I was really interested in kind of medieval combat sports. So I learned quarterstaff, I learned broadsword, I learned kenjutsu, I learned knife throwing. So I spent a lot of time doing that kind of thing. That was a big hobby for me. I've definitely fallen out of the habit as I've gotten older and significantly less fit. But still something that I, that was very important to me for a very long part of my life, was doing various combat sports, something that I really enjoyed. Rennie K or Rennick1 or Reniki, sorry, not sure how to pronounce that, says, my only question is, how's the work budget between filming, editing, scripting, ideation, etc.? I'm shocked you always put out such consistent content, and so curious which parts end up being the most time intensive. So I guess the most time intensive is ideating. I do very little scripting and very, very little editing. I'm lucky enough with the type of video that I produce that I don't need to do heavily edited videos because people are here for information. And so rather than have to do flashy edits in order to draw eyeballs, I can just have good information that makes people interested in hearing what I have to say. So I spend most of my time trying to figure out what good information to present would be. What that looks like in practice is I spend a lot of time reading comments and seeing ideas from the community and seeing which ones of those I think are fun. Poking around in game, doing builds for Baldur's Gate 3, or obviously just playing the games that I just do unedited gameplay footage for. And then I do very, very little editing. I try to edit as little as possible while recording. I just record in segments so that if I mess one up, I can just cancel and start over again. And usually I do that in like 2-minute segments and kind of edit as I go. And I think that probably the typical process for a video is that I record for, I don't know, like an hour and a half in order to get a 45-minute video, because I will start over a segment occasionally or whatever. But mostly I just do this off the top of my head because I think that it's easier and I present a more authentic, more sort of human feeling flow of ideas. And also I enjoy doing it more. And I figure anything that I have fun with is something that people are going to have fun watching. Frederick Iyer says very, very kind things here. I look forward to hearing about your play button. I did get the play button. I need to actually take a photo of that and post it soon. My question, what advice would you give a parent who has a young child who's interested in becoming a streamer? I don't want him to think he can just sit still all day and make money while his damage and speed stats go down. I love the reference there. So bearing in mind, I am not at all qualified to give parenting advice. I think that the advice for someone who's interested in becoming a streamer is the most important thing for being a streamer is to have a hook, and to have an idea of what it is that people are going to get out of your videos. In my case, it's specific, direct information presented with no embellishment. So people who come to this channel know that I'm not going to yell, I'm not going to pretend things are worse or better than they are, and that I'm going to give them kind of direct informational content. And a lot of people obviously are looking for that, especially in the modern environment where it's a little bit harder to find that kind of thing online. As for the kind of lifestyle of becoming a streamer or the path into it as a kid, I think that the most important things to do that are try to develop interests, hobbies, and the tools to make yourself interesting online. So take voice classes, do acting, read a lot of books, learn a lot. All of the things that make you better at being a person in the world will also make you better at presenting yourself to an audience. Ashtray CC says, huge fan of your content. Thank you, Ashtray. I tried your recommendation of Inscription, and it changed my life. Man, it'll do that. What a game. Just curious what a normal day in your life is, and how old are you? Keep up the great work. Well, thanks again. So, firstly, how old am I? I'm 36. I'm turning 37 in a couple months. Curious what a normal day in my life is. So, I guess I already mentioned this, but sort of my work process here is I spend a few hours in the morning going over comments and kind of deciding what I'm going to record, and then I try to record in the afternoon. If I have something that I need to get done that day, then I'll record after dinner instead. So mostly I will spend the morning and early afternoon replying to comments, making sure that everything is working well on the channel, going back and making and seeing what interesting things have happened, looking up like gaming news to see if there's anything that I need to keep on top of, or if there's a game that I should be paying attention to as it comes out. I do have to reply to some emails that I get from developers and things like that, and potential sponsors. I haven't done any sponsorship, but that is something that, I'm trying to keep the door open to, I guess, a little bit. So hopefully that gives you some idea of what a day in the life looks like. Zerky says, also, what does your daily schedule look like? I should have combined these two. So I think I pretty much just went over all of the went over my process for making guides and a day in the life. So I hope that the answers to the previous two questions answered this one as well. Column P Reformed says, why the Sightstone profile icon? So the profile icon is the old Sightstone item from League of Legends. I guess it's been removed probably a decade ago since I last played League of Legends. But originally, way back in 2011, when I first started this channel, it was for League of Legends, which I was playing as a hobby and then later pretty seriously. And so I was posting League of Legends stuff. So that's where the Sightstone profile icon comes from. I kind of like that it's a discontinued item from League of Legends. And in League of Legends, it's an item that you use to gain information about the map. So I feel like it actually fits the channel very well. Fusili says, came for Brotato, stayed for BG3, continued with Slay the Spire 2. I love when people transfer between different games. I know I cover a lot of games from very different genres that don't have that much audience overlap, but I find that they all sort of scratch a similar itch of optimizing and learning systems, so I really enjoy that. And it's always great when people also enjoy multiple of the games that I play here. How do you feel when comments point out mistakes that you made? Must be hard not to take it personally. No, not really. If comments are pointing out, not for me, I guess. If comments are pointing out mistakes that I made, I enjoy that because I like learning about these systems, and I don't find that I take personally knowing that I've made a mistake, because everybody makes mistakes. I'm here to get better and improve and help other people get better and improve. We're always going to be making mistakes as we go, and when people point those out, that's great. Then I've learned something, so has everyone else. And I try to, pin comments and stuff when people point out a mistake that I made. What is funny is I do get a lot of comments from people pointing out quote unquote mistakes that I've made that are very clearly not mistakes, and they often do so quite rudely. Those tend to be a little bit more not, like I'm not upset by them, but I do find it pretty amusing when people say something that is so wildly off base. And often those are the angriest commenters are the ones who think that you've made a mistake, but it was in fact them being unable to do arithmetic or something. But the people who point out genuine mistakes, I love that, and I really want people to do that. And if I was ever to feel like, oh, I can't really take having people point out mistakes that I made in this run, I wouldn't read the comments that day, and I'd go back at a different time. If everyone's in a bad mood some days, and if I'm in a bad mood and I'm like, oh, I just can't take having to think about whether I played the wrong card there, or walked to the left when I should have walked to the right, then I just wouldn't read the comments. But mostly I don't find comments to be particularly impactful for me, like emotionally, and especially not ones that are good intention, well-intentioned pointing out of mistakes. Tearsim says, have you ever expected to make it this big? Certainly not when I started. So when I guess when I originally started this channel, it was purely as a hobby, and I did it for a few years before taking an almost decade-long break. And then at the beginning of 2023, I left my last job and was taking some time off to kind of reset. And then I was like, okay, well, I need something to do with my time. I'm going to do something creative. Let me reboot that YouTube channel that I used to have a decade ago. And so mid 2023, I think July 2023, I started posting again. And at the time, it was just like, I just need something to do while I am taking time off before I start looking for another job. I need to be, at least creating or making something every day, because when you're not working and you are, I was lucky enough not to be in like financial danger or anything like that, but I was also just not spending my time on anything. So I wanted something productive to do. So this was a hobby, but then I started, getting a little bit more traction, and a couple months later I was like, oh, this is beer money. And a couple months after that I was like, oh, this is my utility bills for the month. And a month after that I was like, wow, this is my rent. And then I started being like, well, I guess I'm making more money doing this than I was at my last job, so I should just keep doing this. And at that point I was like, all right, well, I felt, I have managed to turn this into something that I can do professionally, and I knew that I would be able to keep growing it, because once it's something that you can put your full focus into and you've sort of found things that work and proven successful, I felt like I could keep duplicating that success. So did I expect to hit 100K subscribers when I first started? Definitely not. Have I expected to at points along the process? Yes, once I started systematizing and kind of really digging into how to do this. Alistair Plays says, I'd love to learn a bit more about your life outside of YouTube. where do you live? What do I do outside of YouTube? So I already talked about how this is my job, which I think is probably the question. I live in a medium-sized town in Ontario, Canada. And what do I do outside of YouTube? Well, this is my job. So what I do is mostly, things that you do in your life and then hobbies. So I obviously play a lot of other video games. I read a lot. I cook. We garden. We live near some wilderness, so we go for a lot of pretty long walks. So I, live my life the way that anybody does, doing fun things. And in particular, I like to play video games and read. Are my two like major hobbies. Sweden the Hedgehog says, "Big congratulations on the 100,000 subscribers." And then a lot of extremely kind words. Thank you so much. I have one random AMA question. Do you speak any language besides English? And whether you do or not, is there a language that you wish you spoke or want to learn? I don't speak any language other than English fluently. I speak a little bit of French. Je parle un petit peu de français, mais très mal. I speak a little bit of French, but very badly. Enough that I can understand what people are saying to me, but and usually make myself understood. But I am not certainly not going to say that I speak French. I played a lot of StarCraft. I played StarCraft Brood War competitively, so I speak enough Korean to be able to really cuss someone out, and also to ask where the bathrooms are and order food. And I took Latin in high school many years ago, and still remember enough of that I can kind of get by in between that and knowing some French from living in Canada. I can kind of get by in Spanish and Italian because of having a little bit of Latin. Are there languages that I wish I could learn? Yeah, I'd love to learn more Korean. We actually watch a lot of Korean television shows, but subtitled. I'd love to be able to watch those in the original. Shout out to Chef and My Fridge on Netflix. It's so much fun. And Culinary Class Wars had some recommendations there. And I mean, I would love to learn just any other languages, and that's something that I have often wanted to spend more time on, but just haven't done. Tarantula Gaming, tremendous friend of the channel, says, "I got this super chat to make sure you see the comment that I'm not amused and will not be supporting this video." I think this was from the April Fool's video. But also for the AMA, do you have any advice for all the smaller channels out there? So this is a hard question because there's a lot of luck involved, of course. You need to catch on the algorithm, and you need to have a lot of luck. And I think that there are a lot of creators who will downplay how much luck is involved and say, yeah, I did this all because I'm so amazing. But no, definitely there's a huge amount of luck involved. And so if you are not finding the traction that you're like really looking for, it may simply not be anything that you're doing, which I know is a very unsatisfying thing to hear, but that is kind of the nature of these law of large numbers platforms. I think that the most important thing, I think the most important thing is to make sure that you're having fun with it. Enjoy the process of making it more than the results, and don't look too much at the stats, especially when you're starting out. I know that a lot of the advice out there is, you need to like optimize your click-through rates and make sure your retention is good and use keyword research and stuff like that. Much more important that you're having fun with it and that you're enjoying what you're making. And then I think often the success will follow from that, because audiences really do sense when you're making things. The other thing that I would say is when you're making things you like. The other thing that I think I would say is you should try to have a hook for your channel. Something that you think you do uniquely or specifically well. In my case, the hook for this channel is mostly calmly presented factual information with a lot of enthusiasm and tangents, and ideally, hopefully, some creativity, so that people can really get the info that they're looking for, but also enjoy the process of learning it. But there are lots of different things that different people can do, whether it's based around your personality or the types of stuff that you do. If you're especially phenomenal at one type of game, then of course you can do, world record and competitive types of content, that type of thing. But I think that I feel bad being so generic and so filling it with repeating platitudes here, but I think that the most important thing is to enjoy the process for itself. YouTube really wants to gamify making YouTube videos and make you feel bad if one isn't doing well, because it is a social media platform and social media is designed to hurt the user. And so you need to remember that you are fighting, and as a creator on the platform, you are directly in its target. And so you need to remember that you are being targeted by this platform and have fun, so that it doesn't, the mechanics that it presents you with, don't take away the fun from you. So hopefully that makes sense. And maybe at least some of it's actionable, I hope. How hard can it be? Another incredible friend of the channel writes, for the AMA, if you clearly love dogs, why do you have only a cat? Rental agreement. My apartment, or the house that we rent, we agreed not to get a dog because the landlord was worried about damage. Technically, we could because of the legalities where we live, but dogs are a lot of work. I love dogs, and we will definitely get a dog at some point, but we're happy right now with just a cat and taking care of just one needy little old man. And 2, did you ever travel to Europe? I've been to Europe twice. Once when I was like a couple months old. My family went on a trip to Switzerland, which is where one side of my family is from originally. And I went in college to visit some family friends in Sicily, and then went through bits of Italy, did a couple days in Rome, did New Year's in Rome, which was amazing. I'd definitely love to go back, but travel obviously has been a little bit more complicated for the last 6 years or so, for certain reasons, and so I haven't had a chance to really go back to Europe, but definitely on the list. Matt Without Fear says, I'm here for this trend of content creators doing silly fun videos for April Fool's Day instead of clickbait crap. Yes, me too. Something that I really, really want to emphasize when I do April Fool's videos, and if you look at the last 3 that I've done, is I want them to make sense, even if you don't know what April Fool's Day is. Just, it's a silly video for fun. I detest the dumb pranks that people pull, like, oh, I'm retiring from YouTube, because it's just annoying to people. They're going to watch it on, sometime in September and just not know what you're talking about. And videos that are just lying to the audience, to me, are both boring and somewhat hostile. So I appreciate that because that's something I really try for. Congrats on the 100K. Will we get a face reveal for the AMA? No, not because I'm not comfortable revealing my face, but just because I'm recording this video at a very weird hour and haven't had time right before going on a trip, and haven't had time to set up a camera or lighting or anything. But you can find old videos of me with my camera on from when I was younger, and it's not something that I'm can't possibly have a camera on. I'm not trying to hide my identity or anything like that. It's purely laziness. Small Sloth says, going over how much money YouTube is earning would be really cool. I agree. I wish I could go over exact details. Unfortunately, YouTube, or rather Google AdSense's terms of service, prohibit you from revealing exactly how much money you're making, because they don't want advertisers to know how much they're paying for ads on a given video, basically because they want to control their targeting better. It's a somewhat hostile business practice, but I signed the agreement, so I have to follow it. What I can say is that I am, with 100,000 subscribers and 1 to 2 million views a month, making more money than I did in a sort of lowish level corporate job before, where I was definitely being paid under market rate. But this is enough that I and my partner are able to comfortably live on it, which of course is phenomenal. It's incredible that that's how it works. And I've been lucky enough in this spot to not have to really go out of my way to take sponsorships or brand deals or anything like that. And so I get to just make stuff that I really like That might change at some point. The financial pressures of this career are obviously extremely volatile. And I will, if the right sponsorship offer comes along, I'm definitely going to be interested in doing that. But basically, what I can say is that I am certainly not getting rich off of this, but the amount of money that I'm making is enough for a pretty comfortable living, which is great. And Josh Hobbs says, "Oh, hey guys, I also made a subreddit just now, r/cephalopocalypse, just for goofy memes and clips. Never made a subreddit before, and I probably won't be super active for a while, but post funnies there if you feel like it." Well, firstly, sir, that's not a question. Shame on you. Secondly, that sounds like a lot of fun. I don't personally have a Reddit account, so I won't be able to post on it. But I'll probably lurk if people are gonna hang out there, and if you want to, chat about the channel, that sounds like fun. Definitely go check that out. And thanks again for all of the incredible support. And I think that's all of the general questions. Next up, questions about gaming. Shrill2165 says, "Speaking about games in general, what do you think about the connection between mechanical complexity and strategic depth? I.e., to what extent do you think a game has to be complex in order for its strategic decision making to feel interesting? What do you think about this, and what are your personal preferences?" I think there are lots of games that can have really complex decision trees out of very simple rule sets. A good example of this is chess, sort of the quintessential extremely complex game, or Go, extremely complex game with very, very simple rules. And so you don't need to have tremendous mechanical complexity in order to have tremendous strategic depth. I like a reasonable amount of mechanical complexity in a video game because I think that it's often fun to discover systems that you didn't really know were working as you're playing. But I think that there are lots of games that have really, really simple systems and have really cool things rise out of that, and that's also great. So I guess my personal preference is any game that's fun, I will enjoy it. Also, asks, "I recently got into board games. Do you play many board games? And if so, how does the experience compare to playing video games?" I used to play a ton of board games. I haven't as much lately, because I'm in a city where I don't have as large a sort of gaming group. But I really like board games. I like card games. I like playing any games in person. I love the experience of playing games in person. Both of them can be great, and also video games. Both can be great social activities. And so the direct comparison, I would say, is that board games, I really like the tactility and the immediacy of it. Video games, I like the convenience and the complexity that you can get. Bruno Vet F says, "My question for the AMA would be, do you always catch yourself playing games in the way you do in the videos? Also, completely unrelated, do you work in law?" I don't work in law, though I have a few friends who do. Do I always catch myself playing games the way I do in the videos? I think I do sometimes catch myself like trying, puzzling through how I would explain something if I was recording it. Because I think one thing that I enjoy about recording is that it helps me clarify my own thinking. They say the best way to learn is to teach. And so I definitely do that, if that's what you mean. Aw Shucks 443 says, "Well earned. I appreciate your videos and look forward to the next ones. Thank you. For the AMA, are there games you're looking forward to? Any plans to pick up guides for older games?" Yeah, there's a few games I'm really looking forward to. I am, of course, looking forward to the next Divinity game, the next Larian game. I'm really looking forward to Total War, Warhammer 40K. I think that will be an amazing game. I'll definitely at least consider recording stuff for the channel for that one. And of course, I'll be playing Divinity. I am looking forward to The Expanse, which I played the beta preview of. And there's a few other RPGs on the horizon that I've heard sort of rumors of that I'm pretty interested in. I tend not to follow news about games before they come out because I really like experiencing the game when it's complete. And I spent a lot of time in gaming communities, like following games before they came out. I was super, super active on the Elder Scrolls forums before Oblivion came out. So I did a lot of that when I was younger, and I found as I am a little older now, I enjoy just seeing the game and playing the game. Chong Frisbee says, my peak curiosity is, what is your past with strategy games? I seem to remember you mentioning something about seriously competing in some form, but not being specific. Yeah, so I seriously competed in several games. I played StarCraft Brood War quite seriously. I was very, very close to moving to Korea instead of going to university, moving to Korea after high school in order to compete more seriously. I played League of Legends for money. I played Team Fortress 2 for money. And Team Fortress 2 I played at a pretty high level, League of Legends at a fairly mid level. But I have competed in a lot of different games. I've also been pretty high ranked in a lot of games that were less competitive. I was one of the top ranked players in Soulforge, which is a now defunct card game. I was one of the early top ladder players in Hearthstone at a time when it wasn't as competitive as it later became. So yeah, I've played competitively in a lot of different games. Zeterid asks, is there a game or franchise that everyone is in love with but you couldn't get into? Definitely there's many games and franchises that everyone's in love with. There's certain types of games that I really wish I could enjoy more, like platformers and racing games, but that generally I haven't really enjoyed when I have played them. But I guess probably the biggest franchise that I feel like I should like, but just haven't enjoyed when I've tried it is Dark Souls and general Souls-like games. I find that the visuals are often very dark and sort of washed out, and so visually I haven't been super excited to try them. And then the gameplay often involves a lot of memorization of boss movesets, and I find that games that require a lot of sort of repetition and rote memorization of boss movesets I don't enjoy as much. I would like to be able to systemically solve the puzzle rather than memorize a solution. So I think that obviously those are incredible games that many, many people enjoy, just not for me, I've found. Tank Dempsey says, what are your favorite games that you don't play for content? I've noticed you slip into some magic terminology playing Slay the Spire, so I was just wondering what other things like that you enjoy. So I think I've answered some of these questions about favorite games overall, but I'll mention a couple others. One game that I really like in terms of card games is Once Upon a Galaxy I've been enjoying. It's on Steam, it's also on mobile, and it's a very casual, very fast auto battler by the people who made Storybook Brawl, Rip in Pieces. And that, I think, has really kind of filled the same role that I used to enjoy in Storybook Brawl, and it's just a fun, casual game. So there's another favorite game that I play off stream, usually while I'm like lying in bed, winding down before I go to sleep. Darth Batman 101. I like Darth Batman's a good name. My question for you, Seth, is how long have you been playing video games or tabletop games? You always talk with the confidence of someone who's been doing this for a while. Well, thank you, because being able to talk confidently about this subject, certainly it's a professional skill for me. So I'm glad that it's working. How long have I been playing video games or tabletop games? I guess I learned to play chess when I was 3, technically, was when I first started, but probably like 4 or 5 was when I first actually really figured it out. But we'll say coming up on 35 years now. Dory the Great says, question, do you play or have you played other systems than D&D 5th edition? Which ones do you like or dislike and why? I've played many, many systems other than D&D 5th edition, RPGs and role-playing, tabletop role-playing and forum-based role-playing before every forum in the world died, was one of my biggest hobbies through the last couple decades of my life. So I've tried a lot of different systems. I think that 5th edition does what it does pretty well. It's not my favorite system, but and generally I've found that my gaming groups, the ones that play D&D, have gone back to D&D 3.5 and other variants like Pathfinder. I recently, I guess a few years ago now, ran a game in Iron Heroes, which was an old sort of indie variant of D&D 3.5. And so that's where a lot of my kind of tactical wargaming goes to. I've enjoyed the World of Darkness games, Vampire and Werewolf. I've enjoyed Call of Cthulhu. I've enjoyed a lot of much more indie systems. I also like freeform systems, and just plain text-based role-playing was something I did a lot as like in my teens and early 20s, back when you could just go on a forum and everyone would be posting in character. So I've tried a lot of different things. And the answer is, which ones do I like or dislike? I tend to prefer, for games that are combat heavy, I want a mechanically dense system. So if there's going to be a lot of deciding who wins or loses an encounter in some way, I want mechanics that support that. But I enjoy all kinds of different games. Just you want to choose the system for the story you're trying to tell. And Corrupted says, congrats on 100K. Easily my number one BG3 channel. Thank you so much. My question would be, what are your top 3 or 5 must-play CRPGs you think people need to play in their lifetime? So this is a little different than what are my favorite games. So this still a pretty complicated question, because you also get into some questions about what is a CRPG, like does Transistor count, for example, or Hades, because then those would definitely be on the list. I think that Baldur's Gate 3 is one of them. I think it's just one of the greats of all time. I think for me, an extremely formative game was Neverwinter Nights 2. The building system, the bit where you build your keep up in Neverwinter Nights 2, I have used in so many games that I've DM'd and stuff like that. And it really, I think, was one of the games that sort of pioneered actually having good writing in a video game. I think that I mentioned previously Darklands from the early 90s, I think is one of the very earliest games that had a really deep and complex story in a video CRPG. What else? 5 is hard because there's so many good ones. It's hard to decide what to mention. I think the Pillars of Eternity games, for more recent games, Dragon Age Origins, and I also am a big fan of Dragon Age 2. Not everyone liked that game, but I really did. The Mass Effect games, if you count those are all very much worth playing. Some of them because they're so impactful on the culture, and some of them because they're just like great games in and of themselves. All of them very much worth checking out. Next up, questions about Baldur's Gate 3. Of course, many people have specific Baldur's Gate 3 questions, so let's talk about those. Kate Gaming Queen says, what's your favorite class, race, companion, and NPC in Baldur's Gate 3, and why? My favorite class is Bard. It has been basically since I started playing D&D games 20 years ago. My favorite race, probably human, but in Baldur's Gate 3 in general, probably human. I've played, I think, more humans than anything else. Changelings when they're available. In Baldur's Gate 3, Githyanki, it was the first one that I played, and I think it's really unique and fun that they are in the game. My favorite companion in BG3 is Karlach, and my favorite NPC is Alfira, because I am basic like that, but also because I think that those are incredibly well-written and fun characters. And I also like characters that get to be fun in a dark story. I think that that's something that games often will put just sad sack characters only in a story, and something I think BG3 did well is, despite things being pretty bad, there are a lot of characters there who still manage to find joy in it, and I think that's powerful storytelling. Rat5066 says, how long have you been playing D&D? Favorite tabletop class? And is my favorite class in BG3 different? I've been playing D&D since I was probably 12. So I guess almost 25 years. My favorite tabletop class is Bard. My favorite class in BG3, also Bard, so it's not different. But I also have played a lot of wizards in tabletop, probably more overall than I've played bards. And my favorite build that I've made, man, there's so many. The I think that the build that had the biggest impact on the community at large, and that I still really love playing and also found really fun to build because it was a real sort of mechanical breakthrough at the time, was the Lightning Lord build. Because I think I was one of the first people to post about that one, and I think it really showed people what was possible in Baldur's Gate 3. 10-8 Guru says, love to see the channel get the recognition it deserves. Thank you again. My question would be, how do you workshop your builds? Do you still do full playthroughs, or do you have a save where the game is almost completed with every item in my possession? And do I just do full respecs there? I do still do full playthroughs, less now because I've now played through the game a lot, but I would do full playthroughs a lot, pretty constantly. I've played, I don't know, many times through the game. I enjoy playing it from beginning to end, and so that's something that I have done more than you might think. I also have testing files, so I have a bunch of saves that I have right before encounters, and I'll just use the console to set my characters to a level that I think is appropriate in order to test builds. And so that's usually how I actually test the builds is, so I'll workshop the builds either in actual play or by finding a cool idea, usually from a comment that someone's left, and I try to give credit from those, or just by poking around in the menus, or by just playing the game, and then I test the builds by taking on some difficult encounters. Usually I try to not do specific boss encounters, because what I don't like to do with builds is tailor them too much to beat very specific encounters. I like to have them be generically powerful so that people can use them in the entire game. And I think that if you just do, say, the Merkel fight over and over again, you're going to end up doing builds that just index way too hard into beating that fight. Whereas you want your builds to be more generally applicable. Chip Clip Got Grip, another phenomenal name. Congrats on the milestone. Thank you. How often would people actually be upset that you always pick True Strike, or did the community pretty quickly pick up on the gag? You'd be surprised. People are still upset now. And it's often not people who are new to the channel. Sometimes it'll be someone who I see has made 50 comments, and then suddenly they'll realize that I picked True Strike in a build, and they'll go nuts. If you scroll to the bottom of like most of my BG3 build videos, you're going to see somebody upset about it. And that's what part of why I keep doing it, is because it keeps working. Matthew Jackson, congrats, man. Will you someday do a BG3 playthrough? So I had started doing a kind of edited playthrough when I hit 5,000 subscribers, which is wild to think about. And I was doing encounters from Honor Mode, basically showing those off. The challenge with doing a full playthrough is that it's very long, and YouTube does not really push Let's Plays at all. Also, the game's been out for a while. People have very specific ideas about how you're supposed to play. And so you kind of need a gimmick in order to make a playthrough fun. So at this point, there's definitely still ideas that I have for ways to make a full playthrough fun. I probably will still do more edited boss fights and more edited like sort of spell guides and stuff like that in order to show off specific mechanics. I think a full unedited full-length playthrough, unless I come up with some really fun idea for it or end up getting a really cool opportunity, like getting to play it co-op with the developers or something like that, is unlikely, but never say never. T.S. Russell says, congrats, your BG3 videos have been so much fun for me. Thank you. I'd love to hear your take on how to make Acts 2 and 3 fun to play. I love Act 1 so much, but I always find myself starting a new playthrough instead of playing the next two acts. As a perennial sufferer from restartitis, I am right there with you. BG3, I think also, Act 2 and 3 kind of narrowed down. Act 1 is so expansive, and Act 2 and 3 have a more narrow focus. What I have found in order to make them fun is something that I like to do is rotate through my party and try out different builds and different characters. And I will often like randomly select a party member to come with me on a given mission. And then you hear dialogue you haven't heard before. You get to try out new abilities that you haven't tried. I think that people can often get bogged down when they play just the same characters through the entirety of the run, because they end up not changing much. And also try to play builds that do different things at different levels. That'll help too. Ramylicious says, I hope that you'll never get tired of this. I especially love the silly little details. Thank you. How do you get your inspiration for your content? So I've talked a little bit about this, I think, mostly in terms of Baldur's Gate 3. My inspiration is either comes from reading comments or just from poking around in the menus, trying out weird interactions, and trying different fights. Something that I really try not to do is look at the Builds Reddit or the Builds Discord. I've never been on either of those. Or the page, like the YouTube pages for other YouTube creators, because I don't want to steal their ideas. I don't want to influence my understanding of the game too much with other people's understanding of the game. So I really try hard not to. It feels a little bad because, of course, I want to support everyone who makes stuff, but I try not to watch their stuff because I feel like it would make my stuff worse if I started taking on too many aspects of what other people are doing. Olio Rogue says, congrats on the 100k. What was your personal favorite build to play when I played BG3 by myself? I sure did play BG3 by myself. So I've talked about this in my top 10 most fun builds video. The Omnicaster build that I put at number 1, that was the first build that I played through the game with, a 10 levels of Lore Bard with a level of Cleric and a level of Wizard, in order to get all of the cool secret spells, all the skills, all of the Bard stuff. And I really, really enjoyed playing through with that build because I got to see so much of the game, and it was so much fun to play. Rob Agnew, what are your top solo honor mode tips and builds? So I'm not super focused on solo honor mode. I've done testing. I've played some solo honor mode runs just for fun. But I do think that the game is more interesting and more intended to be played as a party. Now, obviously, solo honor mode is an incredibly, fun and rewarding way to play. So I definitely don't want to discourage people from doing that. But it's not like a focus of how I play the game. My top solo tips are memorize the encounters ahead of time, learn which encounters you can take, learn how to approach the encounters, because if you give the enemies a turn for a lot of solo characters, then you're going to get killed, so you need to make sure that you know like where you can stand in order to attack from stealth and trigger surprise rounds and stuff. So either watch a playthrough or do some testing in non-honor mode runs. And my top build, stealth archer builds do dominate solo honor mode. They're by far the most reliable way to beat it. Some other non-stealth archer, and you can watch, like Morgana Evelyn, I think, has tons and tons of stealth archer playthroughs. So that's probably the easiest way to get a sense for how to win solo honor mode. The non archer solo honor characters that I think are most fun are things like Abjuration Wizard, where you get to just tank everything up, or a Tempest Cleric, like Lightning Lord type caster, where you get to blow everything up. Lots of different options there. And Josh Hobbs says, if Brotato, BG3, or Slay the Spire made a Cephalopocalypse item, card, or event, what would you want it to be? Honestly, I just realized the story of BG3 is kind of perfectly aligned with the channel name. Yeah, you're right. That was a really fun coincidence that this channel that I made, decades prior to BG3 coming out, turns out to have a name that perfectly aligns with Baldur's Gate's story. It's destiny, really. If a game made an item for me, my favorite types of items in games are ones that let you transform building one type of character into a different type of character. So usually those are ones that let you turn one stat into another stat. So for BG3, I would want an item that would be something like you can add your intelligence bonus to attack rolls, something like that. Or for Brotato, I would like an item that's something like, for every X points of harvesting you also get a point of elemental damage. I find those things are really, really interesting because they open up different ways to think about stats and build characters that you wouldn't otherwise have gotten. Questions about Brotato, which of course many people have specific questions about because I've played an awful lot on the channel. That Man Dan says, mentions a lot of extremely kind words as well, and says, Brotato class guides is where I started. I've dabbled in some other games you've covered. Question, if you could create a Brotato character, how would you build it? What's the focus and the downside? What would you name it? Um, so I think that as I just said, I like things in games that let you use a stat or a tool in an unusual way. I think that I would want something in Brotato that interacts with harvesting, because I think I've been one of the real champions of building harvesting in this game. And I would want something that interacts with the shop in some way. So a character that could see 5 items every shop, I think would be really fun for a character for me. And then it would obviously have to have some balancing downsides for that, but giving you a little more optionality as to what to pick. A character that got to like turn items into a different item in the shop. I think these are all sort of technically out of scale for Brotato as well. I don't think that it really can regenerate an item in the shop. That would require fundamentally recoding the game, but sort of off the top of my head, I think that type of thing would be pretty fun. How hard can it be? 404 has some incredibly kind words again. Thank you so much. And then says, why is there no Patreon yet? And what would your Brotato streamer item be? Like the Dextroyer. So no Patreon yet out of laziness. I was sorting out tax issues in order to get it set up. That's definitely something that I am going to make a priority soon. And I appreciate the reminder, so thank you. And what would your Brotato streamer item be? I've been thinking about this a bit because the Evil Empire did say they were going to make one for me, though I haven't heard anything since that. So who knows when or if that'll actually happen. But what I'm thinking is kind of an initial design is something like your burning damage can crit. Every time an enemy dies to a critical burn, you gain 1 harvesting. Or, every X times an enemy dies to a critical burn, you gain 1 harvesting. That way it ties into harvesting, which I mentioned as being a cool, heavily associated with the channel. And also lets you turn one stat, burning damage, into a different stat. Ubbard says, what's the best autopilot mistake you've made on Brotato? Mine's taking a cursed stone skin while playing Ghost and having negative 200 health. Yeah, that one's really funny. I've died a lot of times to buying Weird Ghost while I have damage over time. Fewer than you might think, but it's happened, I think, even in videos. In my one-armed guide, the first one-armed guide that I did, I bought double Triangle of Power while having Bloody Hand and ticked my damage down to 0 and then never noticed. So you can watch that video and see my damage just consistently decreasing, and I'm there going like, oh wow, our damage is lower than I think it should be. This character is really struggling with low damage because I made my damage horrible. And finally, questions about other games other than the ones that I play on the channel. Questions about film, just other questions about many different topics. Starting with, I Am Quail. Would you ever consider rebooting your Minecraft Hardcore series? The game has changed a lot since the last time you played it on the channel. That is a deep cut. So I did a Minecraft series while I was still doing League of Legends on the channel, probably 2012. I'm guessing, so more than a decade ago. And I think that those videos to this day have maybe a couple hundred views at most. So I'm really impressed that you dug them up. Would I ever consider rebooting my Minecraft series? Probably not, to be honest. Minecraft at this point, I think, has such a tremendous culture and tradition around it on YouTube, that trying to break into that space doesn't really make sense in 2026, especially as someone who's not going to be focused exclusively on Minecraft. I am probably more likely to try doing some survival series for other games, and I think that there are a lot of games like Minecraft on the market that are really, really fun, and new survival games are coming out all the time. It's a genre I enjoy quite a lot. And so I think that the chances that you see specifically that are low. The chances you see something like that pretty high. Stenkrum says, according to YouTube, I'm a top 1% Seth fan. Well, thank you so much. So for the AMA, what is my favorite Cronenberg film? So I don't watch like a ton of movies. I used to a little bit more, but haven't in a long time. So I think I've maybe seen 2 Cronenberg movies. I think I've seen Scanners and The Fly. Those are both Cronenberg. And of the two, I remember really enjoying The Fly. So I guess I would have to say that's my favorite Cronenberg movie or film. Alloy says, "Who's my favorite Dota hero?" I did play a lot of Dota. I played a lot more League of Legends, but I still played a lot of Dota, and I played Dota before I played League of Legends, back when it was not Dota 2 yet. My favorite Dota hero is probably Phantom Assassin. I played a lot of hard carries in that game. I also really like Puck. In Dota 2, Puck has a really annoying casting interface where your illusory orb and your jaunt are on different keys, and I find that pretty annoying. When I played Puck in Dota 1, I just bound those to the same key using war keys, which is that's some deep magic. So hopefully that answers that question. Maw59253 says, "Do you think I'll do videos on Divinity Original Sin, Divinity Original Sin 2, like I did on Baldur's Gate 3? As Divinity has been announced, many people are trying it." I haven't yet finished playing through Divinity Original Sin or Divinity Original Sin 2. My partner and I were going to co-op it. We got busy, so she and I have not had a chance to play through those games, and that's still on our list. It's definitely on my list to revisit, and if I do, and there's still some interest, I may do guides on it. Doing guides on older games, and going back for like classic game guides is something I definitely want to do, especially because a lot of the best old resources for the best resources for those older games are starting to disappear from the internet. And I think it's a real shame that if you want to revisit one of those older games, many of the forums and and websites that guides for those existed on are now gone, and there's really no resources for them. It would be nice to be able to provide new players with the ability to get into those, especially because many of them are very opaque, and you really do need a guide in order to kind of know how to play. All right, my friends, that is all the questions that I've collected. So once again, thank you so much to everyone for being here, and of course to everyone who submitted questions. If you asked a question that I didn't get to, please feel free to leave it in the comments, and I will go through and try to answer as many in text as I can. Or if any of these answers confuse you or you want clarification on them, I did not plan this AMA session particularly, so a lot of these questions or a lot of these answers were off the dome. So if there's anything that I didn't do a great job explaining and you want more clarity on, definitely let me know. As always, of course, if you've enjoyed the video, thank you so much for watching again, and of course you can feel free to leave any comment and hit the like button. It helps me out with the algorithm, though I don't expect this video particularly to take off. This is more for the real ones. And of course, you can always subscribe to my channel. Here's to the next 100,000. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you next time.